One more game, the ACC Championship, Saturday night, 8 Eastern on ABC in Charlotte. We started off our preseason pods, Colin touting SMU. Good call. Me touting Clemson.
Yep, good call.
Thanks to Miami and Syracuse. Shout out Fran Brown. Thank God Syracuse went over their win total. At least they then did me a solid and got Clemson into the ACC title. Dabo, by the way, has won 8 straight ACC championships. But here we are, both of our teams. We'll see if we go head to head. SMU, 2.5 point favorite here. I think they opened some places as a 3 point underdog. Total 55.5. All right, so I'm conflicted on this game. I'll tell you, I make it a pick. But if I can get 3 with Clemson, I don't know if I'm going to hedge yet. I have Clemson playoff futures, ACC futures. Here, what I struggle with is SMU hasn't really played anybody. Their schedule's been soft, but Clemson has. But every time that they played someone with a pulse, they've lost. So where does SMU fit? I mean, they could have easily beat South Carolina, but at the end of the day, they didn't. The Clemson offensive line is now all back, but how healthy are they? I don't know. They dealt with some injuries. They were shifting tackles. They had injuries at guard. They at least have all their guys back. We'll see how healthy they are against that SMU pass rush. The Clemson defense has some players, Terrell, Mickens, Carter, Woodaz, Brown, Parker off the edge. But as a whole, their numbers are not Clemson-like, especially against the run. Like 64th success rate, outside the top 100 in EPA per rush. You can get them on the ground. But SMU's offense, their rush offense is not efficient. And they have a really good back in Rashard Smith, but they don't really hit explosives on the ground. And a lot of it's just they don't run block. Their run blocking is not great. And Clemson gives up a ton of run explosives. So
Yeah,
what
does
gives
it have to
there?
be? Does it have to be in this game? Clemson.
Yeah, that's a key. Like, can SMU get it going? Because their offensive line took a big step back this year, particularly at center. And I mean, they lost Hickman, and then who else did they lose? I think they lost both their guards came back. They lost both tackles. Their right tackle's been good. Their left tackle's been a disaster. But their run blocking as a whole has not been good. This is like you haven't seen SMU as like a power spread team. They air raid principles, want to spread you out, go fast, tempo, especially after first downs, a lot of 11 personnel, mesh concepts. The Malzahn tree. I mean, Brett Lashley was with Malzahn from high school, I think. He's an assistant. Uh, was that true? Was he in high school with where Malzahn was? I think so. And then he was with him at Auburn, and and then he went to Miami. He was at UConn a year. For what it's worth, Dabo did get the better of Lashley and shut down his offense in his 2 previous stops at Auburn and Miami. But Clemson had much better defenses, and they had a much better defensive staff at the time.
With Venables.
Yeah, with Venables there. And yeah, so that's interesting. The Clemson secondary is much better than the run D, which I think is important here. Can Jennings take advantage, or will he finally miss RJ Maryland? The wide receiver room won't wow you with talent, but it's really solid and really deep. You can't just focus on any one guy to take them away. They just have a lot of depth there, and it's a well-schemed offense. On the other side of the ball, the SMU run D is really good. Their safeties are great. They're deep there. McGill, Kobe, their run D is just outstanding. They're top 5 EPA per rush. They got a good D line full of power forward transfers. I mean, but it's like ex-Miami players. Harrison Hunt, Harvey, Elijah Roberts is a stud. They all used to be at Miami. Good linebackers, Walker and Wilson. And then those safeties, you can stop the run. They get sacks. They get tackles for loss. You have to beat their corners. That's the weakness. It's outside a corner, outside top 100 in pass explosiveness allowed. They really miss Charles Woods at corner. He's now with the Rams. Klubnik's good deep thrower. Can their wide receivers win on the outside? That's what I think this game comes down to for Clemson. Can Wesco and Moore step up, help out Williams? That's going to be the key here. Can they win those battles? And then can Clemson protect Klubnik enough? How healthy is that offensive line? Can they stop that SMU pass rush, that SMU defensive line who can really get into the backfield? I do think ultimately maybe Clemson is just better equipped to take advantage of SMU's pass explosive D issues than SMU can the rush explosive issues, but I don't know. I don't have a ton of great data points with SMU. They've also played a lot of teams with a lot of injuries on defense in the secondary. Jennings also doesn't really run much, and that was we saw how many issues Clemson had last week with Sellers. I do also believe Clemson has all the intangible benefits. House money. They didn't think they were going to be here. Renewed sense of life. They're playing in Charlotte. They have the coaching experience being in an ACC championship. SMU really heavily penalized team. Clemson not. I think SMU's 130th penalties, Clemson 35th. Games in Charlotte, as I mentioned. SMU does have a special teams edge. That could matter in a close game. But I'm conflicted on this game, but I do make it a coin flip. Would lean Clemson. Undecided on the hedge. Would bet Clemson at 3.
Yeah, for those of you that have like 20, 22 to ones on SMU out there, like I do, I did a 4X on Clemson on the +2 with the points with the hopes of middling that. So,
Clemson missed extra point at the
yeah,
end.
yeah, anything like that is going to be a huge day for the Wilson house. Um, I think everything you said is legitimately the handicap on both sides of the ball because Clemson, I just don't see them being able to run the ball. I mean, SMU has a 57% success rate defensively against the inside zone and counter that Clemson likes to run. I don't think Phil Maffa and Cade Klubnik running those run concepts are going to have any kind of success whatsoever. I mean,
And I
Clemson,
just don't think their offensive line's going to get great push either.
right. And SMU's top 25 in defending rush EPA. Like, I just don't think you're going to get anything big here. And when you go to the throw game of Klubnik, that's where SMU does a lot of cover three. They do a lot of quarters, and Klubnik's about mid FBS against that. And I think Bryant Wesco is going to be the biggest part of this offense. I think he's the one that can take advantage of an SMU defense that is almost just barely slipped in the top 50 and defend and creating contested catches. So the Clemson targets should have clean balls and should have space to make something happen. I just don't think it's going to be enough because on the other side of the ball, Clemson is so atrocious in defending rush explosives, and Brashard Smith is just on a mission here. 13% of their rushing attempts have an explosive play. The zone read here is going to be what they look for. And you mentioned RJ Maryland because
He's dangerous. Watch him out of the backfield too. He's
yeah,
like the passing game.
yeah, and I think the other thing that's working in favor, Kevin Jennings, by the way, could play shortstop for most Major League Baseball teams. I think he could throw a baseball probably 105 miles an hour. He's got a freaking rocket arm. When
Well, the
RJ
biggest difference that Jennings has provided, like I mentioned, he doesn't run, is
right,
that the offensive line is not as good. The left tackle's been a disaster. Center's not as good. His mobility in just navigating the pressure that SMU can allow at times and dealing with that and then getting the ball downfield, buying time, something that Stone couldn't. That's one of the things that kind of jump started SMU after the bye when they made the full quarterback switch. His mobility and ability to evade sacks and pressures in the pocket because this offensive line has taken a step back from last year.
right.
That's been the biggest difference with Jennings.
Well,
And yeah, he does have a rocket arm.
you mentioned RJ Maryland going down earlier in the season for SMU. He was the top target on the team, no doubt. But there might be a star in the making here because wide receiver Roderick Daniels started filling out the slot and becoming the main guy, 2.2 yards per route run. That is explosive. Early downs have not been great for Clemson on defense. That gives me a lot of positive signal that SMU, who is ninth in the country in offensive momentum killer, is going to be able to just simply have methodical drives and mix in a couple of explosives. Um, I like SMU a lot here. I mean, futures aside, everything aside, I think SMU should be favored over a field goal. So I like SMU here in the points.
Let's go head to head. Might as well go head to head
Let's
one
do
more
it.
time.
Are we just doing my future as your future, or do I got to swallow the two? This
Yeah, you
lands
got to swallow.
one.
Yeah, you got to swallow the two. I mean, you have 22 to 1. I don't have that good, so I'm going to make you swallow the two.
How is the
Uh,
22 to 1 minus
two,
2?
2.5. Making you swallow 2.5. That's the current number.
I
Uh,
mean, I need this because the hate on SMU the first month of our podcasting was bad. I need this win.
I need this so I can laugh at you again. It's a Dabo podcast, baby.